Hello and welcome back to our 5th virtual reading buddy session. So today I'm going to start on chapter 9, as last week I set the homework to read chapter 7 and 8. So again, if you haven't quite done that yet, then if you just pause the video and read up to chapter 9 to make sure that you're up to date with where we're going from today. Okay, so this week's questions are: first of all, what is the little girl's name from District 11 who captures Katniss's attention? So she captures Katniss's attention because she reminds Katniss of her little sister Prim. Okay, question number 2. What does Katniss send an arrow through to impress the game makers? So if you remember, on page 97, it describes when Katniss has to go and show her skills to the game makers, and then they give her a score. So what does she do? Where does she send the arrow? And number 3, what score do the game makers give Katniss? So when she sends the arrow through something, what score do they give her? So to give you a clue, it ranges from 1, which is not very impressive at all, to 12, which is the most impressive. So all of the tributes get a score. And an extra challenge question, which you can have a go at if you'd like, is just at the end of chapter 8, is what does Peter do at the end of chapter 8? So what does he do? What decision does he make? So I'm just going to give you 5 minutes to answer those questions. So if you pause the video, have a look at the questions and answer them. Okay, so let's go through the answers. Answer number 1 is Rue. So the little girl from District 12 is called Rue, and she's also, she looks very like Katniss's little sister. The quote, the answer to number 2, is the arrow skewers the apple in the pig's mouth. So this huge roasted pig that has been delivered to the game makers as part of their banquet, and it was taking their attention away from Katniss, which infuriated her, made her really mad. So she got her bow and arrow and sent an arrow straight into the apple that was in the pig's mouth. Okay, so the next answer is 11. So they scored her 11 out of 12, which I think was the highest score. And the answer to that challenge question, what does Peter do at the end of chapter 8, is he asked to be coached separately. So as we know, their strategy is to be coached together, to be seen as a partnership. But at the end, Peter asked to be coached separately. Okay, so I've got all my equipment ready to read today. I've got highlighter, ruler and pen. And we're going to start reading chapter 9. So, betrayal. That's the first thing I feel, which is ludicrous. Okay, so they've opened this chapter with a one-word sentence, betrayal. Okay, so betrayal means when you feel that someone has gone behind your back and been disloyal. So you feel that you can't trust someone. Ludicrous. So if you want to quickly go on your online dictionary and find out what ludicrous means. Sounds a bit like another word, ridiculous. Something that is unbelievable. For there to be betrayal, there would have to have been trust first, between Peter and me, and trust has not been part of the agreement. We're tributes, but the boy who risked a beating to give me bread, the one who steadied me in the chariot, who covered for me with the red-headed Avox girl, who insisted Haymitch know my hunting skills. Was there some part of me that couldn't help trusting him? So again, we've looked at this language technique. It ends in a, write it down if you know it, rhetorical question. So it shows us that insight into Katniss's mind. So even though she's tried to stop herself from trusting Peter, she clearly does. On the other hand, I'm relieved that we can stop the pretense of being friends. Obviously, whatever thin connection we'd foolishly formed has been severed. So I think I read that word incorrectly there. Severed means something very important. That actually says severed. Okay, so severed means to cut off. So she's saying that the connection with Peter has been cut off. This word severed. And high time too. The games begins in 2 days and trust will only be a weakness. Whatever triggered Peter's decision, and I suspect it had to do with my outperforming him in training, I should be nothing but grateful for it. Maybe he's finally accepted the fact that the sooner we openly acknowledge that we are enemies, the better. So if you notice this punctuation here, these 2 hyphens, it's to put emphasis on this suspicion she has in the middle. I suspect it has to do with me outperforming him in training. So it shows that she's really second guessing what he's done. She's unsure about it, but she wants to get to the bottom of it. She's obviously quite hurt by it. Good, I say. So what's the schedule? So she's defensive. She puts on this brave front always. So Katniss is very defensive. You'll each have 4 hours with Effie for presentation and 4 with me for content, says Haymitch. You start with Effie, Katniss. I can't imagine what Effie will have to teach me that could take 4 hours, but she's got me working down to the last minute. We go to my rooms and she puts me in a full-length gown and high-heeled shoes, not the ones I'll be wearing for the actual interview, and instructs me on walking. The shoes are the worst part. I've never worn high heels and can't get used to essentially wobbling around on the balls of my feet. But Effie runs around in them full time, and I'm determined that if she can do it, so can I. The dress poses another problem. It keeps tangling around my shoes, so of course I hitch it up. And then Effie swoops down on me like a hawk, smacking my hands and yelling, "Not above the ankle!" When I finally conquer walking, they're still sitting. Posture. Apparently, I have a tendency to duck my head. Eye contact, hand gestures, and smiling. So it sounds like they're trying to, it's a bit like what we might call finishing school. They're trying to turn her into this perfect symbol of the capital of District 12. They're trying to turn her into this perfect symbol. Okay. Effie makes me say 100 banal phrases starting with a smile. So the phrases are pointless. So something banal is pointless. So she's just saying anything to practice her speaking, while smiling or ending with a smile. By lunch, the muscles in my cheeks are twitching from overuse. Well, that's the best I can do, Effie says with a sigh. Just remember, Katniss, you want the audience to like you. And you don't think they will, I ask? Not if you glare at them the entire time. Why don't you save that for the arena? Instead, think of yourself among friends, says Effie. They're betting on how long I'll live, I burst out. They're not my friends. Well, try and pretend, snaps Effie. Then she composes herself and beams at me. See? Like this. I'm smiling at you even though you're aggravating me. Yes, it feels very convincing, I say. I'm going to eat. I kick off my heels and stomp down to the dining room, hiking my skirt up to my thighs. So just a quick question here. What do you think the relationship between Effie and Katniss is like? So I would have to say that they have a strained relationship. and that they conflict with one another. So they get into arguments because they're both quite strong women. Peter and Hamish seem in pretty good moods, so I'm thinking the content session should be an improvement over the morning. I couldn't be more wrong. After lunch, Hamish takes me into the sitting room, directs me to the couch, and then just frowns at me for a while. "What?" I finally ask. "I'm trying to figure out what to do with you," he says. "How we're going to present you. Are you going to be charming, aloof, fierce?" So aloof is a keyword that I'm going to clarify. It's an adjective to describe when someone is superior, above something, not interested because they're above it. So if someone thinks they're above things, hopefully you can see that. So it sounds like she's not human anymore. They're all thinking, how do we present you? She's just this symbol rather than a human. In this dystopian world, if you remember that, the genre of the book is dystopian, a nightmare world. "So far you're shining like a star. You volunteered to save your sister. Cinna made you look unforgettable. You've got the top training score. People are intrigued. But no one knows who you are. The impression you make tomorrow will decide exactly what I can get you in terms of sponsors," says Hamish. So intrigued means interested. So Hamish is right, really, isn't he? People are very interested in Katniss. She's got their attention. But what do they actually know about her? We know lots of things, don't we? We know her sister, her mum, her dad, where she's from, what she has to do to survive. We also know inside her head how defensive she is, how frustrated she is at the moment with not knowing whether to trust Peter or not. So that's just a little summary. Sometimes when you're reading, you can pause mid-chapter and jot things down to refresh your mind, jot them down on paper. So it's just another reading skill to use your summaries and questions as you go. "Having watched the tributes interviews all my life, I know there's truth to what he's saying. If you appeal to the crowd, either by being humorous or brutal or eccentric, you gain favour." So let's look at all these three adjectives and think up synonyms for them, other words that mean the same. So humorous, you've probably heard the word humour, means funny. Brutal. Okay, so I'm going to say cruel and violent. And eccentric means someone who's a bit crazy, someone who is different to the crowd, so someone who stands out. What's Peter's approach, or am I not allowed to ask, I say? Likeable. He has a sort of self-deprecating humour naturally, says Hamish, whereas when you open your mouth, you come across more as sullen and hostile. So again, the author's used quite high-level adjectives that we're just going to clarify. So self-deprecating is when someone doesn't take themselves seriously. So when someone can laugh at themselves easily. Okay, someone who's sullen, and sul is a good clue, so see if you can guess. It's someone who's very sulky. And hostile, so if someone's hostile to you, it's kind of like rude. Someone who is takes a long time to warm up to people. So it's definitely Katniss. So Hamish actually is probably quite clever. He's quite good at reading people. I do not, I say. Please. I don't know where you pulled that cheery wavy girl on the chariot from, but I haven't seen her before or since, says Hamish. And you've given me so many reasons to be cheery, I counter. So if we imagine what tone Katniss is using there, I'd say it's definitely a sarcastic tone. But you don't have to please me. I'm not going to sponsor you. So pretend I'm the audience, says Hamish. Delight me. Fine, I snarl. Haymitch takes the role of the interviewer, and I try to answer his questions in a winning fashion. But I can't. I'm too angry with Haymitch for what he said, and that I even have to answer the questions. All I can think is how unjust the whole thing is, the Hunger Games. Why am I hopping around like some trained dog trying to please people I hate? The longer the interview goes on, the more my fury seems to rise to the surface, until I'm literally spitting out answers at him. So what I want you to do is I want you to go through this, because I think this paragraph really summarises Katniss's attitude. I want you to underline any words that link to her anger. Snarl. Too angry. Unjust, so not fair. Hate. Fury. Spitting. So if we look at these words, they all really show Katniss's feelings at the moment. Snarling, too angry, unjust, hate, spitting, and fury. All right, enough, he says. We've got to find another angle. Not only are you hostile, I don't know anything about you. I've asked you 50 questions and still have no sense of your life, your family, what you care about. They want to know about you, Katniss. But I don't want them to. They're already taking my future. They can't have the things that mattered to me in the past, I say. Then lie. Make something up, says Haymitch. I'm no good at lying, I say. Well, you better learn fast. You've got about as much charm as a dead slug, says Haymitch. Ouch, that hurts. Even Haymitch must know he's been too harsh because his voice softens. Here's an idea. Try acting humble. Humble, I echo. Then you can't believe a little girl from District 12 has done this well. The whole thing's been more than you ever could have dreamed of. Talk about sinners' clothes, how nice the people are, how the city amazes you. If you won't talk about yourself, at least compliment the audience. Just keep turning it back around, all right? Gush. The next hours are agonising. At once, it's clear I cannot gush. We try me playing cocky, but I just don't have the arrogance. Apparently I'm too vulnerable for ferocity. I'm not witty, funny, sexy, or mysterious. By the end of the session, I am no one at all. Haymitch started drinking somewhere around witty, and a nasty edge has crept into his voice. I give up, sweetheart. Just answer the questions and try not to let the audience see how openly you despise them. So I imagine if we were to analyse Katniss's confidence at the moment, she's definitely got low self-esteem. She doesn't feel like she's good at anything, that she can play any character, and I don't think Haymitch is helping. I have dinner that night in my room, ordering an outrageous number of delicacies, eating myself sick, and then taking out my anger at Haymitch, at the Hunger Games, at every living being in the capital by smashing dishes around my room. When the girl with the red hair comes in to turn down my bed, her eyes widen at the mess. Just leave it, I yell at her. Just leave it alone. I hate her too, with her knowing, reproachful eyes that call me a coward, a monster, a puppet of the capital, both now and then. For her, justice must finally be happening. At least my death will help pay for the life of the boy in the woods. But instead of fleeing the room, the girl closes the door behind her and goes to the bathroom. She comes back with a damp cloth and wipes my face gently. Then cleans the blood from a broken plate off my hands. Why is she doing this? Why am I letting her? I should have tried to save you, I whisper. So it's almost like Katniss is getting the chance to say sorry. She shakes her head. Does this mean we were right to stand by, that she has forgiven me? No, it was wrong, I say. She taps her lips with her fingers, then points to my chest. I think she means that I would just have ended up an Avox too. Probably would have an Avox or dead. I spend the next hour helping the red-headed girl clean the room. When all the garbage has been dropped down a disposal and the food cleaned away, she turns down my bed. I crawl in between the sheets like a 5-year-old and let her tuck me in. Then she goes. I want her to stay until I fall asleep, to be there when I wake up. I want the protection of this girl, even though she never had mine. In the morning, it's not the girl but my prep team who are hanging over me. My lessons with Effie and Hamish are over. This day belongs to Cinna. He's my last hope. Maybe he can make me look so wonderful no one will care what comes out of my mouth. The team works on me until late afternoon, turning my skin to glowing satin, stenciling patterns on my arms, painting flame designs on my 20 perfect nails. Then Venia goes to work on my hair, weaving strands of red into a pattern that begins at my left ear, wraps around my head and then falls in on one braid down my shoulder. They erase my face with a layer of pale makeup and draw my features. Okay, so I'm going to pause at the end of page 114. I'd like you to read to the end of chapter 10, so you'll need to complete chapter 9. So next week, there's your homework, reading till the end of chapter 10. Next week, I'll begin reading chapter 11, so make sure you are up to date, ready to read. And I hope loads of you have been having a go at the Hunger Games workbook that goes alongside this and are getting on well with reading it at home, hopefully for up to 20 minutes every day. Thank you.